Good morning, everybody. I'm Nicole Fitzhugh, a member of your Board of Trustees here at the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. We are an intentional, multicultural, multi-generational, and multiracial community dedicated to building a greater beloved community here in Oakland. And I have a few announcements for the good of the order. Anti-racism training is coming soon. Paula Cole-Jones, one of the co-authors of the 8th Principle of Unitarian Universalism, will lead a team to offer Jubilee 3, Learning Together About Systemic Racism. Set aside September 9th through 11th now for this important online training and register at paulacolejones.com/Jubilee. Contact the Journey Toward Wholeness Anti-Racism Transformation Team at jtw@uuoakland.org for more info. And if you're trying to track these URLs as I speak them, I think that you will find them on our website as well. So also, we would love it if you would come and join UU Oakland's Crescendo Choir. It's a great time to join. The music team would love to have you. The choir meets at church on Wednesday evenings, 7:15 to 8:45, and they sing 2 Sundays of the month. No audition is necessary. You do need to sing on pitch and carry a tune. Leaves me out. For more info, contact the choir co-directors Renée, Witon, and Stefan Schneider at music@uuoakland.org. We hope you remember to pack your picnic basket and your blanket and your games today, because after worship service, we will have an all-church picnic and social at Lowell Park. It's not a potluck, but you can choose to share. Lowell Park is just down the street, across the bridge over the 980 freeway at 1180 14th Street. This is a wheelchair-accessible location. Look for everyone on the east end of the park between the playground and the ball field. Thanks, everybody.
Good morning. My name is Dick Bailey, and I found church here. Each week we begin worship by lighting 3 candles, one each for peace, racial justice, and community. I invite you to say the words for each lighting as they appear on the screen. Our peace candle words today were penned by Nigerian human rights and democracy activist Hafsat Abiola. Peace comes from being able to contribute the best that we have and all that we are toward creating a world that supports everyone. But it is also securing the space for others to contribute the best that they are.
All that they are.
Right. We light this candle today as a witness that represents the unquenchable fire for justice for Black people that burns in our hearts and guides our actions as a congregation. Together we say, Black Lives Matter. Again?
Black Lives Matter.
Thank you. I can't chew gum and talk at the same time, let alone do hand motions, but perhaps those of you who know the hand motions can help me out here. We light this chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. May it remind us of the divine spark in all of creation, the power of love to heal what is broken, and to be grateful for life's blessings each day. Leo Buscaglia, a wonderful teacher on connection and love, once talked about a contest he judged. The purpose was to find the most caring child. The winner was a 4-year-old child whose next-door neighbor was an elderly gentleman who had recently lost his wife. Upon seeing the man cry, the little boy went into the gentleman's yard, climbed up onto his lap, and just sat there. When his mother asked him what he said to the neighbor, the little boy said, "Nothing. I just helped him cry." Today we will be exploring connection and care in community, including the times we journey together in struggle and in grief. And the people join as one in saying, Come, let us
worship together. Join us now in singing We Gather Together, 2 verses. In just a moment, we will share watching a video. And what we're going to see is a dad and a daughter doing a skateboarding lesson. But what I want you to listen for is how they journey together. She starts by falling. He doesn't say, "All right, get up, dust yourself off." He asks her this question: Are you hurt or are you scared? And she says, "I really want to do it." And he says, "Okay." And she says, "But I'm scared." And he says, "You don't have to." And she says, "But I want to." And he says, "Yep, sometimes it's hard." And what's remarkable about the way he listens is that he never once tries to change what she's saying or feeling. And that reflection, that idea that you come in your entirety, even in your grief, is part of what we reflect on when we talk about pastoral care. You're going to hear more than what I just mentioned, but that not fixing, not changing listening is what I want you to listen for now. Ready? Let's do it.
Did it scare you or did it hurt you? The drop-in was amazing, you know that, right? Sometimes we just slip out on the ramp.
What if I fall again? Well, I'm kind of scared and I really want to do it.
Sometimes it's scary doing hard things, and it's totally up to you whether you want to give it a go right now.
Well, I'm scared that I'm going to fall.
We can skip this. You don't have to do this.
I want to. Whoa, it's
okay.
Well, okay. Catch me. Okay, so I'll do it. 1, 2, 3.
That was a great job doing that after falling. It's really brave. And
Is my foot okay back
yeah,
there?
it looks amazing. And then just lean forward and stomp and bend your knees. And I'll be here in case you fall.
You promise you'll catch me?
So do your thing, and I will be here the whole process. Here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here.
Whoa.
Whoa.
1, 2, 3. Slam.
I want to say that I think that's really amazing that after that fall, you've gotten up and you've worked through that fear, and you're dropping in again.
1, 2, slam.
Whee! Wow, you're cruising that ramp. Here, let's do the next one. Boom, boom, boom. I am stoked for you. That's really cool that you did that.
You probably won't be skateboarding with your pastoral associate. Probably not. But one of the most important things the team offers is spiritual listening that says, we know you have wisdom about your life. And we know that your grief is real and your joy is real. And hey, we're right here either way. So, thank you. Our next movement today is to greet one another. Remember, we are still taking care around transmission of viruses and bacteria. So, go ahead and ask your neighbor if they'd like a hug or touch before you do that. Please do greet one another and enjoy this morning. Thank you so much for your hospitality to one another. I really appreciate your warm welcome and friendship. Please do return to your listening place. Before we go on, if you are new here or you'd like to update any information, you'll see a QR code that looks like this. It says, welcome, because we're glad you're here. We want to be able to support your exploration and what interests you about the congregation, give you information about how you might participate. So if you scan that code, the form, so how you do it is you pretend you're going to take a picture of it. And then your camera on your phone will open the link that has just a few questions that get you connected up. And there it is. So let me know if you need to see one, if you're in Hamilton Hall. If you're not in Hamilton Hall and you need this, we've got you. Just put something in the chat and you'll get that reply, or go ahead and email the office. And it is my great joy and delight to introduce to you Dick Bailey. Dick is extensively experienced both in worship and pastoral care. And thank you for the word you're about to bring today, Dick.
The picture on the screen is of the late Howard and the late Joan Poulter. The following story betrays no confidences. It was all public, if not common knowledge, which is not to say that it is not very personal, remains tender, and is to be handled with care. Howard Poulter could do anything. Repair all the stained glass windows in the church, recover all the chairs in Hamilton Hall, renovate the Art Deco chandeliers and exit signs, design and teach others, like me, to build the wall sconces in Winty Hall. And with his sweetie, Joan, he always called her his sweetie, they took on responsibility for the church's exterior landscaping. They founded the Lafayette School Mentoring Project that became Boost West Oakland, and they co-founded the McClymonds High School Merit Award program in perpetuity. Howard and Joan could do anything. I thought that Howard and I couldn't have been more different. He was a technical whiz with a PhD in engineering, the first such person hired by an obscure pop firm down in Silicon Valley before it was called Silicon Valley, a startup called Hewlett-Packard. My degree is in counseling, which at the time when Carl Rogers' non-directive counseling style was in vogue, meant that I learned how to say, 12 different ways. Other dissimilarities, Howard and Joan had 6 kids between them. My husband and Greg and I have 6 fewer kids. Howard never sought attention. I never heard Howard crack a joke, a talent I have frequently abused at the most inopportune of times. Howard was also quietly fearless, and I am audibly fearful. Howard consistently, understatedly, humbly emanated human kindness with endless integrity. So when I was assigned to be a pastoral associate for this person who seemed so different from me, during one of the early times he was in the hospital in the late 1990s, it seemed a daunting task. What could I possibly offer this highly intelligent, accomplished pillar of my newfound church community? What was there to talk about? Hell, we both relied on women to carry on conversation. What do we have in common? My pastoral associate training had suggested that basic to this work were 3 components: showing up, being present, and listening. And if you do that, what comes next will reveal itself and flow naturally. That sounded great in theory, but for me it had yet to be proven in practice. Showing up would be the easy part. I'd just ride in on my white horse, Dick Bailey to the rescue. Being present and listening came harder, because being present meant I must park my white horse at the door. Stop listening to my own desires to fix things or to appear wise. Set aside my own ego needs and anxieties and fears, and listen not just with my ears, but with an open heart. What was there for me to talk about? Not much. What was there for me to listen about? A whole life's worth of life. Perhaps even soft-spoken, humble people like Howard needed someone with whom they can share their stories, especially when trapped in a hospital bed, when the kind of attention you get might be necessary to maintain your physical well-being, but insufficient to nourish your soul. Over time, Howard talked, and I listened. He talked about his dad, who was an explorer, who ventured to Antarctica with Perry or Shackleton, I can't remember which, and going with Joan to explore the Galapagos before there was such a thing as ecotourism. He talked about his decision to leave a prominent position with Hewlett-Packard because of the differences he had with the company over the war in Vietnam. And he and Jones taking a year off from their jobs, to blend themselves and their 6 teenagers into one family after they got married. And he even told me about his mom, who had suffered from mental illness and who took her own life when he was a kid. Now, showing up and being present and listening didn't always work. On a much later hospital visit, after a long silence, Howard turned to me and somewhat exasperatingly said, "Dick, thanks, but I want my sweetie." Gradually over the years, Howard's magnificent mind began to fail. And the man who could do anything could do less and less. When you are a smart person and the plaques are clogging up your ability to think, you have to know it. What a lonely, closing in, isolating, depressing feeling that must be. One of the things that Howard continued to do was walk every day, and I sometimes joined him on those walks. Each day he walked the same route and kept track of his time in pencil on the kitchen wall. On our last walk together, Howard said that he wanted to go in another direction, down the hill to the creek, rather than do his usual walk. We did, and he stood overlooking the creek for the longest time, seemingly memorizing every stone and rivulet. I remember standing there growing impatient. I didn't realize he was saying goodbye. We went back to the house and he gave me a little pulley thingy that he had made to hang over the top of a door to exercise a sore shoulder. I thanked him and told him that I would call him the next day to arrange our next walk. He said thanks and goodbye, and I left. I didn't realize that he was saying goodbye. Around noon the following day, I called up and Joan answered, and I told her I was calling to arrange a walk with Howard. And she responded wryly, "Well, that isn't going to happen," and hung up. She called me back a few minutes later and asked me to come right over, as the representatives from the sheriff's office were there. While she had been out at exercise class that morning, Howard had taken his own life. Joan asked me to stay while the deputies did what they do. Because it wasn't a natural death, they had to be involved. And then distract her when they took Howard away. She asked me to call a couple of his sons to let them know that Howard was gone, which I clumsily did, and to ask them to come up from Silicon Valley. But most of the time I just tried to be present for Joan, be present to however inadequately channel Howard's love for his sweetie. And listen to Joan as she dealt with that time that she knew was inevitable, but for which we are never fully prepared. Joan reminded me that easily 20 years before, she and Howard had talked about not wanting to stay around should the quality of either's life deteriorate to an unbearable state. And they read a book about what actions either would take should that eventuality occur. I had known that fact because we were all in a death and dying class together years before, but I think I deliberately didn't want to remember it. After the family started to arrive, I faded into the background and looked for little things that might be of help to Joan. When I was changing the sheets on the bed, I found a note that Howard had just started to write to his brother. It read, November 13, 2013. I can't do anything. Now, I don't have words to express what Howard Poulter meant to me and what an extraordinary honor it was to be able to share part of his life journey as a pastoral associate and ultimately as a family friend. This guy whom I thought I shared little gave me such a wonderful gift. The gift of connection, of trust, of sharing common humanity. Sometimes the places where you think that you least fit afford you the possibility of the most profound reward. Being with another to experience both supreme connection and possibly substantial heartache are the gift of the real stuff of life. I invite each of you to consider being a pastoral associate. You have the stuff to show up, be patient, and listen. And what comes next will be as much a gift to you as to those you wish to serve. Thank you.
Go ahead and take a few easy breaths now. Renee, if you could play quietly for a moment or two. Really grateful for Dick's depth of sharing. It may have brought up grief for you, depending on your relationship to those circumstances. Keep easy breathing. Hold your grief in your hands, this way. And then let it go. In just a moment, we'll sing together. But if you recall your grief and you'd like to talk about it, that's exactly what Pastoral Associates can do. Listen. So please reach out as appropriate. You can reach out to me. And if you like, I can also connect you with a specific associate. Just now, we'll be singing People Who Come Gather Here. Thank you. In just a moment, we will have the embracing meditation. It's a time when we speak a word or two about what's on our hearts into the space. If you're on Zoom, please feel free to type what's on your heart into the chat. If you're on Twitch, please join your spirit with ours. Dick will ring the bell, and then we'll have a time to speak for just a moment or two. Let's go ahead. Just a word or two, Brian. Just a word or two. Brian, just a word or two, please. Even more to speak into the space. Thank you, Evelyn, for bringing this book forward. You'll find it each Sunday in the narthex. Also, a place to put your joys and sorrows, a record for the congregation. We hold in our care Piper Swim, who has lost her mom, and Kelly Kirkpatrick and her continued prayers to recovery. In just a moment, we'll share the words. We hold them in our care. We hold them in our care. Now we'll join together to sing, Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. We have 3 verses. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker this morning, but before I do, we'll offer a word of prayer, and then I'll let you know about Reverend Barbara Meyers. So an easy breath or two. For some of us here today, we wish the summer would never end. We've enjoyed opportunities to connect, to relax, to break away from schedules and hectic calendars. For others, there is the thrill of entering the new season, looking forward to the challenges ahead. On this Labor Sunday, we gather to share blessings once again, that we may recognize the interbeing of one another in our lives and use the gifts that we give one another in service to others. We've spoken names and situations into the space, perhaps typed them in the Zoom chat, or as we have in common, held them in our hearts for compassionate, healing love. We add our names as well, for healing and care of one another and for the world, we pray. We pray for the ability to be strong in our commitment to serving one another and those in need. Let us be open always to abiding love. And for these things, we give thanks, and we say, Amen. I'm grateful today to introduce to you the Reverend Barbara Meyers. Reverend Barbara is a Unitarian Universalist community minister with a mental health ministry based in Fremont, California. She's the assistant director of the Life Reaching Across to Life Peer Support Center, the author of a mental health curriculum for congregations, and the author of the book Held, Showing Up for Each Other's Mental Health, published by Skinner House Books in July of 2020. She's the president of the UU Mental Health Network. As a seminary project, Reverend Barbara wrote a document used to train Pastoral Associates, which is used by her congregation and many other UU congregations. Welcome this morning, Reverend Barbara. Things we want to talk to you about this morning. So I asked Reverend Barbara if I could try to give you a really full picture of pastoral care with a conversation.
Well, the training that I developed, what we focus on is responsibilities of a pastoral associate. So what is it that they are responsible to do? Talking about the organization of the pastoral associate group and its operations. Understand basically what lay pastoral care is. And we talk about, there's some give and take. What gifts do we bring? And what concerns do we have? So what we see we can bring and what are we concerned about, and have everybody express that. And you talk about the basic guidelines for contact and follow up with someone if you're assigned to be an associate for someone. We talk about ethical and legal issues that are very important for people to understand. And we have some practice in active listening. So what to do, what not to do, have some role playing, and then commentary on the role playing. And then talk about how a person responds. And then in the monthly meetings, we would have a training component to introduce other topics like how to meet a person's spiritual needs, how to visit someone in the hospital. What if someone has a serious illness? How would you handle that? How not to say the wrong thing when comforting someone. Talk about maybe elder care or care in situations of disability, dementia, death, and dying. Talk about grief. Talk about mental health problems, and maybe talk about humor in pastoral care and how that can be important. And what we would do is have a basic meeting format in which we would talk about the issues that we were dealing with. And then we would have another topic, such as one of the ones that I just mentioned, to further the training that a person would have in those kinds of situations.
Thank you so much. It sounds like some of what you just shared would answer part of this question. Excuse me. But I would love to hear more about what it is that pastoral associates do. So we've had a couple of examples, but in addition, anything else you want to share about the actions they take or how they show care?
Right. So basically being present with the person, that's the most important thing. Your presence is a sacred gift. And being able to be there present with a person. I've learned that many times in the ministry that I do, that sometimes my just being there is helpful. Offering an opportunity for the person to talk about their concerns. Active listening and acknowledging the person's concerns and feelings without giving advice or without, judging the person. Maintaining confidentiality or discussion when appropriate, and making appropriate referrals for problems that are outside of the scope of the program. That's something that can work with the minister, or maybe develop some resources that you're in your community that people can use. And providing instrumental acts of kindness as feasible and appropriate, maybe food or transportation. And this can be done using other volunteers in the church or resources of the church as a whole.
Thank you so much. It made me wonder, too, anything you would add to the list of situations that pastoral associates do not get involved in?
Okay, well, no, I don't think I'd add anything to that list. So basically, if a person's having a crisis of faith, that's something that should be dealt with by a religious professional or a pastoral, a spiritual director maybe that a person would have. Not trying to be a person's therapist, because we're not trained therapists, and you can't represent yourself to be that way. Not being, if you're angry at something that's going on in the church or policy in the church that you don't like, that's not really something that's for a pastoral associate to handle. And if you're having conflict with somebody else in the church, that's really not something for the pastoral associate to handle. So, and then, like I said, short-term need of high intensity or long-term need of low intensity. And those are the basic things, that categories of things that you would not get involved in. And then, of course, if a person is, they feel like a particular matchup with an associate is not working, or they're feeling triggered because of something in their own life, that's something that they can bring to the minister or the chair of the pastoral associates to, have a different associate be assigned to that person.
So much. So I hope that for people listening and thinking about how the team works, how we can continue to build it in our congregation, that has given you some specific reference points. If you have more questions, please do forward them to me. We can check in with Reverend Barbara. Let's pause now because we've been joined by new friends. If you have a new friend next to you, please say hello and welcome them to the space. We'll just do that for just a moment. Hello and welcome. Thank you, new friends, for being with us this morning. And in just a moment, we were going to say our congregational covenant together. This is because last week we talked about worship. Previously, we talked about coming together. Next week, we'll talk about covenant groups. Part of what I want us to be thinking about and feeling in our bodies is the way that all these practices, as we encounter them, are the way that we make our congregational promises real. So let's go ahead and join this together. Dick is going to encourage you to read slowly and listen to your neighbor so we can be thoughtful together.
If you would please rise in spirit and our body and join with me in saying the church covenant, not speedily, but deliberately. In the spirit of love and in service to our shared commitment to build an intentionally multi-generational, multiracial, multicultural, anti-oppressive religious community, we covenant to encourage and grow relationships with one another based on mutual understanding and respect. Work intentionally to counter oppression and prejudice among ourselves and in the world. Listen actively to the needs of others. Assume best intentions and acknowledge differences among us. Value and speak our truth, and uphold the truth spoken by others in our common search for meaning. Engage in direct conversation when we have conflicts or concerns, and seek equitable solutions. Give generously of our spiritual gifts and material resources. Offer help when we can, and ask for help when we need it. In caring for each other and ourselves, we intend to live by this covenant to build a beloved community. This was adopted by congregational vote over 10 years ago.
Please give yourself a round of applause. Present to your promises, super important. Now Dick will lead us in our invitation of generosity. Thank you, Dick.
I officiated at a wedding once, and I forgot to say that at the beginning, and I noticed halfway through that everybody was still standing. It was ridiculous. So please. Invitation to generosity. This is an invitation. It's not a hard sell. When I think of this invitation, I think of all the gifts that I have received from this congregation over the past 28 years. Church over and over reminds me, implores me, helps me to aspire to be my best self. Who I am on a good day is largely because of this church, because of this, because of you. Is there a greater gift? As you can see on the screen, there are a number of ways to give. Perhaps even more ways to give than not to give. In the inspired words of Lila Ibrahim, give until it feels good. Will the ushers please come forward? Please join me in saying the words on the screen are a congregational commitment. To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your practice of care, whether formally on the team or not. As you go into the world this morning, take with you that there is a community that seeks to know you, that seeks to support you through grief and joy. I bless you today with the words of Heather Pettit, where there is no good direction to turn or move. May we be held, known, beloved by all that which is. May we embody her stillness as the universe shifts, and may rest ebb without effort into softest advance. Go into the world. Go in love, practice joy, return in peace. Today, you're still invited to the awesome picnic at Lowell Park. And if you are on Zoom, there will be an opportunity for you to socialize there as well. Bye for now. See you next week.